Hello, welcome in to another episode of The Artist's Journey. Today we have the pleasure of speaking to Jerome, the bus driver. So, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. So, we have some yogi tea, and the way we like to do every episode is read the message that's on the yogi tea. So, what does your message say?
May all things be happy.
Very nice. How does that feel? What does that make you think of?
Oh, it makes me think of why I started calling myself the bus driver in the first place.
And why is that?
Yeah, well, there is a book called The Energy Bus. Around the time, it was about a few months in my poetry, to me, like doing poetry. Around January 2024, when I first listened to the audiobook, because one of my bosses, he was really big on us reading motivational books because I worked a sales job. And he just came in one day. He was really hyped up about this book called The Energy Bus. And essentially what it's about is a man named George has his car break down for like 2 weeks. So he has to board the bus. Little does he know, he is boarding the energy bus. And the bus driver, her name is Joy. And essentially, Joy, over the course of the book, teaches George the 10 rules for the ride of your life.
Wow.
Yeah, so as I started writing poetry, that kind of became like the backbone of what I was writing things about. At the end of a lot of my pieces, especially early on, it would end with one rule of the 10 rules for the ride of your life. And the 10 rules are essentially just, to guide you and to change your mindset from, thinking negatively to thinking positively. And no matter what, happens throughout life, there's no such thing as a good or bad, thing or a good or bad, just thing that happens. But what is good or bad is your response to it. And if you can respond well to the things that happen throughout your life, then you can turn it around into a positive. And that's what the 10 rules teaches you. So that's what this right here reminds me, all things be happy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, and I like how one thing in being introduced to that book just changed the trajectory of your life and just inspired you to carry that and carry that message, because I probably wouldn't have came across that book at all, but you hold that and those lessons with you, and I think that's a beautiful thing, and also to include it in your art too. So
Yeah, shout out to John Gordon. That's the author of the book. John Gordon, he's a great man.
that's a good book to read, and. So if you guys take the time to read the book, definitely drop a comment too. So yeah, so when did you first get into poetry or spoken word?
So around September of 2023, I have a friend who we often just play like tennis together. So one day she's just like, "Hey, we should go to like a poetry slam together." And I was just like, "Yeah, cool. Sounds like fun." And I instantly went to Eventbrite to search up poetry events that happened between Monday and Wednesday, because she worked overnights Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I had to find something that kind of worked within our time frames. And I found a poetry event called The Circle. And so, that was on Tuesdays. I was like, okay, this seems pretty cool. I wanted to go there by myself though, because
Okay.
I had been burned by Eventbrite before, where I went to an event and then it was just an abandoned building. And I
Wow.
tried to contact the person who does the event, but I couldn't reach out to them, and they essentially took $15.
Wow.
So I went by myself to make sure that this was actually legit, to make sure this circle thing was good. And,
Yeah.
I went there in October. It was the first October. It was the first Tuesday of October 2023. And when I went there, it was legit, and it was had the best artist I've heard in my life. That's the impression that I left with. I was just thinking, I've never heard of any of these people, and these people are just as good as I've ever heard, as talented as I ever heard. And I've been to showcases and whatnot for like Atlanta rap music or like music in general showcases, and no disrespect to them, but they kind of just sounded like Atlanta rapper number 265. But these people at the circle, whether they were poets, rappers,
Yeah.
singers, they really were extra talented, and that's kind of where my love for poetry was birthed right there. Before that, the only experience I had with poetry was 22 Jump Street when Jonah Hill was doing a mock kind of poetry scene for comedy. So
Oh, wow.
I'm glad I was able to actually have that authentic experience, and yeah, I've been loving it ever since.
Yeah, I'm glad you're able to find the circle because that's, Eventbrite's either a hit or miss. So, but yeah, it's a good place to hear other poets because I agree with what you're saying with the talent, the talent at the circle and a lot of other poetry spots like Who Wanna Fa
Yep.
with Papa Duke
Excellent one too.
and Black Coffee, and like I was able to meet like talented people such as yourself just by circulating, and yeah, so that's cool. And you just started. Your poetry sounds like you've been writing poetry since you were a child.
Really? Ironically enough, English language arts growing up was my least favorite subject. I did not like to read or write at all. When I used to take those standardized tests and they had the big
Yeah.
chunk of like story you had to read, I used to just skim through. I was like, all right, what does this answer say? Okay, let me see if I can skim through. So it's ironic, I think everyone is a poet within themselves, but some people just haven't wrote yet. And I didn't start writing until literally January 2024.
Yeah, that's real. It's really recent.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's another way of expressing yourself. It's a way of letting your deepest, most inner thoughts that most of the time probably wouldn't be expressed. But it's a way of allowing those things, those words, to be expressed to the world and
Mm-hmm.
inspired by. So yeah. So yeah. So I mean, you just always had it in you. So, what is your biggest inspiration? It could be a person, a place, or a thing.
So my biggest inspiration, I would say, I think the music that we listen to every day really does a lot to like mold how you think, um, as well as the media too. Like whether it's television shows or YouTube shows that you watch, but I think mainly just the music I listen to. I listen to what I would say like a lot of really good artists. I love hip hop. My particular brand of hip hop is more so conscious rap. Some of my favorite rappers, has to be Logic, Kendrick Lamar, Denzel Curry is amazing.
Yeah, they're all good.
Yeah, Tyler the Creator.
Mhm.
And just their stories of perseverance and them being able to have the struggles that they've gone through throughout their life in a very unique way, but still be able to present as themselves and still be able to overcome it with hard work, with consistency. So I would say the biggest inspiration to me is just music, and it's just kind of inherent. It's not even something I really like think about too much. It's just certain things that I just kind of like have in my mind because I listen to them quite often.
Yeah, and music and poetry, spoken word, or specifically rap music, is very similar. Both have a story element to it, and spoken word has a rhythm to it. So it has pauses, and it has a beat, and like when you're speaking. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I could see that. And you're as a poet, your spoken word is conscious too. It's like what you say is, even the meaning behind your name. It's so it has to have something to say with your words is powerful. So, in addition to being a spoken word artist, you are a creator and host for the
Mm-hmm.
Spotlight. So, can you tell us about that?
All right, so the spotlight, initially the birth of that idea, it happened around the time when I started writing poetry for
Wow,
the first time.
look at that.
So yeah, around January, that's when I worked at. Okay, so I got to go all the way back. It's a studio called Cluster Studios, Cluster Media Studios, and I had been working there since April 2023. So this was about like a good like 8 9 months into it. I got into the poetry scene, of course, in October of that year, and then after a few months, started writing. And I would tell the directors at that station, what I would be doing, what I was up to in the poetry community and whatnot. So Robert Jackson, He is one of the co-founders of Cluster Studios. And he came to me and he was like, hey, we should do something like Def Jam comedy, but for poetry. Now, little did he know that's already been a thing. That's been a thing since the 90s.
Yeah.
But, that was his initial idea and I
Yeah.
liked it. However, one, I was just getting started writing. So I was just like, I didn't have the network nearly to like pull something like that off for real. And also, that's when I was about kind of transitioning out of, Cluster Studios for a little bit, just because that salesman job that I had, I wanted to focus more so on that. So I was just like, hey, I'm just going to send this to Artemis, see what happens here. Nothing really came of it because, we never really got the communications linked up. Fast forward to about November of 2024. By that time, I'm not doing the salesman job anymore, and I've been in the poetry community for almost a whole year now. And so the idea, and by that time, since I'm not doing sales work anymore, I'm back at Cluster Studios. So I go there, and November, I'm just like, that idea is kind of percolating within me now, especially because I've grown my network of poets. I've gotten a lot of really cool friends, and the talent is still amazing. And I'm just like, man, these people need to be seen. They need to be heard. And so I go back to Robert with that same idea. This time, though, he's like, I don't really want to like do the whole Def Jam comedy with poetry thing. Instead, let's actually interview poets. You could bring in, one or two poets at a time and just interview them. And when he initially pitched that idea, I was so dead set on actually doing a poetry show. I was just like, I don't really know about it, at least like for the first day. But then I had a day to sleep on it. And I was just like, you know what? Not only is that a great idea, it's a lot more doable than having 8 poets come in at a time every single week. Instead, we could just do 2 poets every other week, have them not only be able to spit their poetry, but also talk about themselves. And that's really where that idea came from. From there, it's pretty much, I spent a good couple of months just kind of reaching out to poets, seeing who would be interested in doing it. And I've been blessed to have just, poets who want to do it and have just good friends who just happen to be amazing poets want to do the show as well. So it's just been a blessing all around. And not only do I get the chance to, have them go on television and just express themselves and fully tell their stories, but I also get the chance to expose people who may not be in the poetry scene or may not have the chance to go out, to open mics every single week. They get a chance now to experience what I get blessed to experience, on a weekly basis.
Wow. That's beautiful. That whole story is lovely. Like the whole thing. And I like 2023 is like your birth year of like just
in a way, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big year. That's when I started my fitness journey. That's when I started with Cluster Studios. And then 2024, January of that year, that's when I got introduced to the Energy Bus. So, yeah, a lot of things happened in that whole 12 months, man.
Yeah. Wow. And I wish you all the best too, because it seems like this is just the beginning of something that's going to continue to expand and blossom.
Yeah, and I'm just really taking it one episode at a time with it. I think I have, ideas of grandeur in my head of where I hope it goes one day, but at the same time, it's just where it's at right now is already a beautiful thing.
It is.
Even if it does get to like a mainstream level, or I do like, start making it like my full-on career and,
I can
the
see
whole
that.
9 yards, it's never going to be what it is right now. And that's what I'm appreciating. Just the start of it, it's a beautiful thing because, once, more fame and money gets included into it, that's when more people start to get their hands on it too. And in some ways it's necessary for it. In other ways, that's one thing I do think about is just like, as the spotlight does get bigger, hopefully maintaining that authenticity. and trying to maintain poetry as the focus of it. You know, I'm open to singers. I've had singers on there already. 17 did amazing job. Symphony the
I
System was
saw that one.
amazing.
Yeah.
But, you know, just really keeping poetry at its core, that's really what I want the spotlight to be going forward. And hopefully as it grows, it can remain authentic.
I believe so, because poetry is such a specific niche, and it needs to be uplifted and celebrated and talked about, because music, like, is easy. People are more receptive and listening to music, but like poetry is such a specific wholesome type of niche in itself. So you being the person to give it its flowers and to create a platform for other people to come on and to express themselves, I think that's a powerful. And I believe what you give in, what you put in, you get back. The law of correspondence. So yeah. So where are you from and where did you grow up?
So I was born in Long Island, New York. However, I only lived there for about 3 years. When I was about 3 or 4 years old, we moved down to Georgia. And ever since then, pretty much my whole life I've been spent in Marietta, Georgia. Apart from the years I went to college. I did go to college from 2015 through 19 at Benedict College. That's a HBCU in South Carolina. After college, spent about a year in Marietta, went back to South Carolina for a couple more years before coming back to Marietta in 2022. So, essentially my life's been spent in Marietta, Georgia.
Cool. I like Marietta too. It's really nice.
Yeah, I've always described it as a good place to raise a family. I think lately, especially once I came back in 2019 after college, I could tell like, oh, they're trying to like kind of step up a little bit. Like growing up, I was like, yeah, this is a good place to raise a family. I might come back here when I'm like 30 or whatnot.
Yeah.
But from my like 20s, I really don't want to spend my life here because everything's in Atlanta. But now it seems like they're like kind of trying to grow a bit past that, trying to add more things for people around my age to do so we could, want to spend more time here. So, yeah, Marietta, that's my hometown. That's where I claim is home. And, I love Marietta, even if, I wouldn't mind leaving at some point, been here for a little minute now.
Yeah, I mean, as you grow and your and the spotlight grows and you connect with more artists, who knows? You know?
Yeah, you never know where the wind's gonna take you.
Yeah. So, what advice do you have for talented poets who may feel nervous to let themselves share their work?
So I would say my advice is that you are more relatable than you think you are. And there are people out there that may feel exactly how you feel or have gone through similar things that you've gone through that may not have the capacity to really tell that story or really tell their story in the same way that you can. So there's many ways that you can tell a story, and no matter how unique yours is, there's always somebody that's going to be able to connect with it. So one of my good friends and an excellent poet, Sunbody, she once told me that it's selfish to hide your gifts. I'm paraphrasing, but essentially it means you have to be courageous enough to share your gifts with people because you don't know how that gift is gonna impact people going forward. So, my advice is that don't be selfish. Of course, be comfortable. If this poem is only meant for you and you only, of course, by all means, keep that within yourself. But if you feel that you want to get it out, there's no need to be nervous. And everywhere that I've gone, especially nowadays in the poetry community, it's very accepting. So even if you don't think it's of quality, people aren't gonna shame you or say like you did a bad job or whatnot. If that's what you're concerned about, trust me, people are very open and accepting. The most you're gonna get is just constructive criticism. Like they're just gonna tell you like, hey, you could do this right here. You could replace this word with this word. We all want to help each other. So that would be my advice for anyone that is nervous or scared to really put themselves and their poetry out there.
That is beautiful. Yes, I agree with everything you said because the way you have to say something, the way you express yourself is meant for someone else, meant for someone to take in and digest. And who knows, you may inspire someone, you know, or you might save a life, you know,
Yes.
or you know. So your story is so important, especially if you're a poet, if you're a writer.
Absolutely.
So, do you have any current projects that you're currently working on?
Current projects outside of the spotlight, not necessarily. I think really, my next strategic moves, because the spotlight, the season finale is going to be in August. So, that's going to, once August passes, my next strategic moves are really just to kind of grow myself, like just like expand my level of expertise in many different facets when it comes to not just poetry, but just broadcasting in general. I want to get back to, radio producing. I would love to just kind of be behind the mic and just learn from people who are experienced. And there's plenty of people in cluster studios that I can learn from. So that's definitely what I want to get into. In terms of the poetry community, I'm definitely learning on becoming a better host and just becoming a better poet in general and spoken word artist, really. I've been working with Z the Nomad on her speech classes. Those have been really good and those have been paying off in terms of just being more confident in speaking and just being more confident when I do my poetry. Even though, some people may say that, I'm this good or I'm doing that good, I can always, reach higher levels. So definitely reaching a higher level in my artistry, also becoming a better host as well. I do a lot of work and I'm a part of Tiffany's staff for Tailored Tales. And she does a lot of great work when it comes to, having space for erotic poetry. And so I've been working with her just to try to become a better host in general for poetry spaces. And so that's really where what I'm working on, not necessarily like projects, but more so just trying to, expand my expertise and just get better in like all different types of facets.
Yeah, and I like that you're not afraid to network and connect with people and to include yourself. To that's all a part of it as well, because like it's one thing to put yourself out there and to perform and to go to spoken word events from time to time, or but it's another thing like you're making moves when you're interacting with your community and you're putting your hand in the I guess in the space of creation is being made and you're connecting with other talented people. That's how you grow as an individual too.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like your poem Holy Mecca. It speaks on not moving the same way but moving better. Like, so can you tell us a little bit about that piece?
Yeah, so the piece is called Move On.
Okay.
Shares the title of, it's a No Worries slash Anderson Paak song called Move On. He dropped that song last year on his album Why Lord. And one of my favorite albums, actually my favorite album of last year. One of my favorite artists too. But, that beginning part is from the chorus, I can't move the same way I used to move. I can't do the things that I used to do. And I think I wrote that in a space where I was in between jobs. I had just left the salesman job and I was still in the process of getting my current job right now. So it was just kind of like that 2.5 month period where I was pretty much like doing Uber Eats a lot and I was, not really in the best space financially. So it was just really one day where I was just laying in my bed, just kind of listening to the song and it just kind of like, just played it repeat over and over again. And I was just like thinking of that chorus, I can't do the things that I used to do, and I can't move the same way I used to move. When this new opportunity comes around, I have to move differently than I've been moving. And so, how the poem kind of started is essentially I just kind of got that chorus stuck in my mind, and then I just pressed the record button on my voice memos. And this was the first time I actually ended up doing this. Essentially, I just, recorded every little word or phrase or line that came to mind. Eventually, I kept recording, and the whole recording was about 40 minutes, a lot of dead space. But in that 40 minutes, that's when a poem actually started. And then so I listened back to it, and then I would just write down the best lines that I saw. And from there, that's where the poem started to form in. So it was just pretty much my subconscious thoughts. And I had like, lines and whatnot that I were thinking, and I just didn't want to lose them all. So eventually, once I got them all down, jotted on the paper, that's when I started spitting it, made a few tweaks and edits, and, that's a move on. And I think that eventually I tied it around to including, my friends and family into what I'm doing. I've always been like someone who's, kind of been more so of a loner, not really asking for people for help, not really like doing things, including people. So, to tie it all back around, I think the last part essentially is me saying that, as I get older now, the only way I can advance is if I include my friends and family. And it ties into rule 4 of the ride of your life: invite people on your bus and share your vision for the road ahead.
I think you do that well.
Yeah, so that's like the formulation of Move On. One of my favorite pieces. Definitely have become a more confident singer because of that piece. And yeah, I definitely love that one. I'm glad you love it as well.
I like your mindset. You have a really good positive mindset too. So, and to have, you're young, so having this mindset now and then like carrying it into the future, like you're just gonna keep growing. I think that's cool.
I appreciate you calling me young as well. I turn 28 next month. In a few weeks, actually, I turned 28. Last year, I actually got called Unc. And the thing is, the lady is 22 years old. I'm like, I'm Unc. Ma'am, you're like 5 years away from being right where I'm at.
It's a mindset thing. You think I'm old, and I don't know. You're gonna be there soon. So
yeah, I've always had an old soul, though.
Yeah.
So I've always pictured myself as a really young old head. So once I actually get to like 35, once I get to that Unc status, I think I'm just gonna fit right in. I'm gonna be the cool Unc.
Yeah, what I'm saying is like to carry your mindset all the way up. Like when there's gonna be a version of you that's 38.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, wisdom carries and follows, and then you have a decade to look back like wow, look at all that I've accomplished, and look how I was able to move based off of my mindset that I have. So, and it's inspiring too, and to like birth the spotlight now, and to have this, you conceived a baby, the spotlight, and that's something that you get to nurture and raise and develop, and it's gonna bless you abundantly because you're following rules. Like, you have people on the bus along with you. You're not by yourself trying to do everything alone, and so you kind of answered my next question. I was going to ask you what's your writing process, but do you write all your poems like that? But what's usually your writing process?
So I think that was the only time I really wrote a poem in that sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't really done anything like that. Usually my writing process, it is similar. Like I do like kind of just write down whatever thoughts come to mind. However, I think that's one thing I could improve on because inspiration does have to hit. And I think the best writers are able to write anything down, whether it's a line or two or whether it's a few lines, no matter if they're inspired or not. I think for me, usually I have to have that within me because when I try to write just off the dome without really having anything to mind, nothing really comes up, or what I do bring up isn't really there. I do enjoy going to writing sessions. Like the ink refill is one of my favorites. However, I rarely end up using those pieces, just performing them for real, because I mean, it was just, right off the dome, no real inspiration besides just prompts that I received. So I think, really that inspiration has to hit. And once it does, that's where that stream of consciousness can really start writing down for me. I love writing on my phone because, as Papa Duke once said, my mind runs a lot faster than how I could write.
Oh, God, yes.
So the phone can definitely keep up with me. When I'm writing on a paper, like I'll have like 3 or 4 dope lines, and then I write the first line and then blank out. But when I'm typing on my phone, I can just hit the little voice thing, talk, and then it'll type it out for me.
Oh, that's
and then
good.
I can kind of just edit it out from there as well. I try not to use this as a crutch, but it is definitely something that comes in handy when you're trying to find words that rhyme. Chat GPT and AI, like, just not for a whole poem, because I think that's unethical.
That's cheating.
But I will I'll be like, hey, what is a word that rhymes with this that also is a synonym for this? And then it'll spit out like a bunch of words. And then from there, that's when I kind of like, okay, how can I use any of these words? Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it doesn't really give you anything. But when it does help, it really does, like, right there, instead of having to go through a whole thesaurus and whatnot.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah, that's kind of my writing process, though. Just kind of like using that inspiration to guide the first wave. And from there, really just spitting the piece over and over, seeing what's comfortable, using Chat GBT every once in a while if I hit a bit of a stump. And just really, that's kind of what it is. I wish I had a more formula to it, though. I think that's where I really need to get locked in, is get a specific formula for how I write, because I think that'll help me be able to get poems out there a lot better.
It'll come. I feel like it'll come, like, as you write. I think you're gonna see your style and what works and what doesn't work. I think that's just that, because this may be something, like, I like the idea of speaking into the phone and then having it typed out for you, because your thoughts, the way, like, what you have to say, your hand can only move so fast. Your mind is like going like,
and it's like, if you don't get it down, it will leave you just
like a train.
Like that.
It's like a train.
And I was just joking with, like, one of my friends, Michelle, and she just told me, like, she's like, in her mind, she has the dopest poems. The minute she pressed record on the phone, or the minute she grabs the pencil and paper, it just goes blank.
Yep.
So you gotta just be able to catch it when it does, whether it's in the shower. Like, if I just get something in the shower, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna just like go ahead, jot it down. One of my friends, his name is Crown. He actually brings his phone with him in the shower.
That's smart.
It is. It's a little risky, but like, hey, look, he's one of the best rappers that I know.
Yeah.
So if that works for him, I could definitely understand why he does that. Because those shower thoughts, that's where you come up with your best stuff.
Yeah, like you said earlier, you mentioned the stream of consciousness. Like, that's when that flows. Whenever you're doing something in the flow state, like, which is showering, maybe brushing your teeth, washing the dishes, like doing things that's not, I guess, anything that's putting your body in a flow, that's when the words start coming. All right, but we're free, about to go to sleep. I hate that. Like, ever experienced that? Like, you're about to get some sleep, you're tired. No, you're tired. You want to go to sleep. And then you just come up with this bar, like this good poem just start coming to you. You're like, if you don't write it down, it's gone.
Yep, and that's when some of my favorite poems have came out, just like while I'm sitting down in the bed trying to go to sleep. But that's a part of it. When inspiration hits, I have to go ahead and start. Because if I don't start doing it, then it's gonna escape me. So sometimes I do just like, there are some times where I'm just like, look, I don't feel like getting in the writing mode right now. I'm on the bus. I'm not really trying to do all that. But there are some times when I'm just like, hey, look, this is really good. Let me go ahead and get this down for real. So just doing that more often, getting more disciplined is really like where I have to be. I have to be more disciplined and knowing that when I have something within me, get it down. Even if it's just like 4 lines, at least those 4 lines can help me start from somewhere.
Yep, absolutely. And then I'm going to ask you your last question.
Okay.
Which is, what is one thing that you're most proud of?
So I'm gonna go a different direction with it
Okay.
because I know that we've talked a lot about just my creative endeavors.
Mhm.
I'm definitely proud about those. Those are just like those mean the world to me. The spotlight means the world to me, and just being able to be ingrained in this poetry community, it means the world. I think where it really started off though is on December 13th, 2022. I stepped on the scale and I weighed 280 pounds. And so I think from there, I was like, hey, I can either let myself get to 300 or I can just try to do something about it.
Yeah.
And so I just set a goal. I was like, hey, look, I'm going to just set the goal to lose 80 pounds. And even if I don't hit it, then I can at least hit like 40 or 60.
Mhm.
But by the end of that year, I ended up hitting the 200 pounds. I was 200 pounds. I think the lowest I got was January of 2024 when I was at 195. And I think that kind of like my physical journey set in motion just a lot of different other things, just because it kind of showed me that if I have that discipline and if I have that system in place for my body, then I can kind of use that for a lot of different other aspects of my life too. So I think that's what I'm most proud of. Just going from 280 down to below 200.
Wow.
Never thought I would actually be able to do that. So that's
I'm
probably
happy
the
for you.
most thing I'm proud of. And yeah, it's really just informed how I come at the rest of my life.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, and I'm proud of you too. So, thank you for joining us today and having tea with us and telling us your journey and your
Thank you so
story.
much for having me. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, no problem. So, until next time, we'll see you again. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a blessed day and see you later. Bye bye.